What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be reacting to the story of Pikes Peak Hill Climb. A couple of you have requested this video. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into here, but I am looking forward to it. Let's get straight into it. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe. Over half of you that watch my videos are still not subscribed. Just hit the bell. It takes 2 seconds. If you'd like to become a member on my channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into here, but I'm excited, so let's go.
There's something about mountains that captivate the human spirit. The rugged terrain and towering peaks pose a challenge so indomitable it beckons to us, igniting our imagination and fueling our thirst for conquest. Deep within the Rocky Mountains stands Pikes Peak, America's mountain, and one that has epitomized this primal longing for centuries. It started with just reaching the summit through any means necessary, but for 101 years now, the mountain has been home to the most dangerous race in America, the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. Each year, drivers challenge the
Never
mountain,
even heard of
climbing
it.
for 12.4 miles and navigating 156 turns through turbulent weather, wildlife, and an ever-decreasing supply of oxygen.
Right.
While cars and drivers have evolved and gotten faster, the mountain has also morphed, becoming more challenging and dangerous over the
Oh
years.
no!
This is a story of adrenaline and aspiration, of bravery and
God.
breakthroughs, and of legends and legacies. This is the story of Pikes Peak Hill Climb. The race to the clouds.
Race to the clouds.
But the most notable project he funded was constructing a toll road to the peak. To market the new road to the public, Penrose decided to create a race up it, where the winner would be given $2,000 and the Penrose Trophy.
Wow.
The event was called the Pikes Peak Hill Climb. The first ever event took place in August of 1916 and drew big names and fast cars. Ralph Mulford, a racer who had just missed out on winning the first ever Indy 500 by a second, was scorching fast, getting up the mountain in just 18 minutes and 24 seconds during practice.
That's
But when it
impressive.
counted, it was a far lesser known driver, Ray Lentz, who became the first king of the mountain and took home the gold and silver trophy with a time of 20
King
minutes
of the
and
mountain.
55
Love
seconds. He did so in a Romano Demon Special, which had been modified to fit a V8 out of an aircraft. But while Schultz and his Stutz had a great run, it was time for the most famous family in Pikes Peak history to enter the spotlight.
Who's
The
that?
Unsers.
The Unsers.
Louis and Marie Unser left Switzerland in 1895 to start a new life near the base of Pikes Peak, unaware of how pivotal the mountain would be to their family's legacy. Louis was interested in all things mechanical and passed this passion on to his sons, Louis Jr., Joe, and Jerry. The three brothers somehow climbed to the peak on a motorcycle with a sidecar in 1915,
Wow.
before the mountain road was even finished. They began entering the famed time trial and quickly accumulated a handful of second and third place finishes, before it was Louis Jr. who first claimed the spotlight, winning in 1934 with a time of 16:01 while driving a Stutz.
Okay, love
The
that.
legacy was briefly put on hold though, with the heavy
Peak
truck competition
power.
in 1935 taking the place of the usual race. The hiatus didn't seem to affect Louis, who shook off the rust and immediately shaved a few more seconds off the record, winning both 46 and 47 while driving a Maserati.
This is so mind-blowing to
Al
me.
Rogers
I
hadn't
didn't even
thrown in
know
the towel,
this
though,
existed.
And the Unser rival took the crown for the next 4 years. The first to get a
All
14-minute
this old
run
footage
was
is
neither
crazy.
Al nor Louis though, but Keith Andrews in 1954 with a 14:39. In 56, the
14:39.
Unser name was back on top, but this time it wasn't Louis, but instead his nephew,
How much
Jerry's
faster
son,
are we gonna get
Bobby
here?
Unser. Bobby was something else, and would win again in 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. Beyond that, he was crushing the record year after year, setting 5 in a row and bringing the time all the way down to a 12:05.
12:05.
So, who could
Wow.
stop Bobby's record-breaking reign? Well, none other than his own younger brother, Al. Although in 66 and 68, Bobby would win again, and brought the record past another minute mark, a task which was getting more and more challenging, this time clocking an 11:54.
Wow.
Like many of the drivers in the story, Bobby was extremely talented, both on and off the mountain, and had won both the Indy 500 and the Race to the Top in 1968. There was about to be a revolution,
Oh,
led by
was
the
there?
Queen of the Mountain, Michelle Mouton.
I've heard of this woman. Can she do
Always
like Group
sliding
B?
One side, the other side. It's like a ballet. It's like a dance. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah, wow,
Audi of
that
America
footage is
pushed
crazy.
into the rally class and won with John Buffum behind the wheel in both 82 and 83. Fellow competitors and organizers didn't know how to feel about the alien European car and female driver who was coming for the record. Some praised the technology of the car and the skill of Michelle, but others were starting to sweat, especially when she was setting blistering fast times in practice. There were some complaints that Michelle was driving too quickly outside of the track and had been kicking up too many stones trying to warm her tires. And whether justified or not, she was fined twice and told that she could no longer drive her car on the public roads, not even to the start of the race.
Wow.
After a press conference, the fines were instead paid to charity, and Michelle was allowed to sit in the car in neutral as her team pushed her to the start.
What?
Unfortunately, the track wasn't as fast as it was in practice, still slick from rain the night before. But Michelle seemed to have a vendetta and pushed harder than ever.
Poor guys, you will see. Because this give me a boost like never in my life.
That footage is
Never I
crazy.
will miss this race. It's impossible.
Wow.
When she reached the top, she had won the event, and it wasn't even close. No one was even within 40 seconds of her. On top of that,
Love
she'd
that.
become the first and only female driver to ever win the event.
That's
And despite
iconic.
the conditions, she'd beaten Unser's record, dropping the time to an 11:25. This was a
No
huge
way.
win for Audi, and they wanted to keep momentum and sales coming. So they tried to make a race happen between Michelle and Al the following year, both in identical Audis, King of the Mountain versus Queen of the Mountain. This never came to fruition as Michelle had joined Peugeot instead, and Audi was planning to send Walter Roll to the mountain. But that didn't happen either. Instead, they did end up with an Unser the following year, just not Al. It was Uncle Bobby, now 52 years old.
Wow.
He'd been enjoying retirement when Audi asked if he could help them with some development work and trying to crack 200 miles per hour down in Talladega. Bobby's work was invaluable, and Audi was keen to showcase all the new records he'd helped them set. But Bobby couldn't help but dream of what the car could do at the mountain, and he wanted to drive it. Audi said no, but Bobby had never signed a media release, and said that if they didn't let him take the car out, he wouldn't let them show all that they'd accomplished in Talladega.
Wow.
And so, Bobby returned to the mountain.
He took it to
17
the
years after his
mountain.
last appearance in an attempt to reclaim the record back under the Unser name with the help of an all-wheel drive Audi.
What did he get?
The car was everything Bobby wanted, and he slashed the record down to an 11:09.
11:09. Wow.
A feat which has yet to be beaten and may never be. But the following year, the record was about to be cut down more than anyone thought was possible.
I was going to say, how
Rod
much
Dillon
quicker
grew
are
up
we
on a
going to get
farm in
here?
the hills of New Zealand, ripping around in carts his dad had made for him and his brother. He enjoyed racing around the gravel roads and ended up entering hill climbs to get his license, eventually driving for Toyota in 1991, then winning the Mickey Thompson Off-Road Series in 92, 93, and 94. Rod had entered Pikes Peak over the years, but wanted to get more serious about it. To keep their prize driver on board, Toyota stepped up and supported him in entering the Mountain Time Trial. The car was a tube-frame monster, with 850 horsepower covered in a carbon fiber shell
Wow.
reminiscent of a Celica. To counter the thin air at high elevation, the team hired an
That
IndyCar designer
speed.
and aerodynamicist to help
What?
the car make around 2,000 pounds of downforce at 100 miles per hour. There was an issue though, and the effects of the aero dropped off steeply if the car had more than 15 degrees of slip angle. This was the first time a Japanese manufacturer had won the event, but Toyota wasn't the only one in attendance. Suzuki first entered in 1989 with a Suzuki Cultus. At face value, the Cultus seemed like an odd choice, with the usual 1-liter engine only making 52 horsepower. For this one though,
Bless.
Suzuki used a turbocharged 1.6 to make around 350 horses, and then they got another, squeezing 2 engines into the tiny car, one for each axle.
2
The
engines.
twin engine trick was actually first seen at Pikes Peak in the form of a Volkswagen Golf in 1984, although the car had some issues and never quite yielded the payoff the company wanted for such an ambitious project. The next year, Tajima was jammed into the tiny Suzuki Cultus to compete in the Unlimited class, but didn't make it to the top. It took the driver and car pairing a while to find their feet, but they did win the Unlimited class in 92, even with the car falling apart right at the finish line. And
No
then
way.
They won again in 93. This year, they actually set a new overall record. But about
10:44.
10 minutes later, Paul Dallenbach took it for himself, beating out Tajima by just over half a second. The car had evolved year by year and
Imagine
was up
someone
to
beating
nearly
me by half a
800
second, I'd be
horsepower. It
fuming.
was also immortalized for its efforts in the video game Gran Turismo 2. After the record had fallen nearly 40 seconds in a single day, it would end up taking years before someone could shave off anything more.
Wow.
The
Okay.
2000s were filled with a diverse crowd of vehicles and winners. Many returning kings such as Paul Dallenbach, David Donner, and Robbie Unser, but no one was close to the record. It had been over a decade since his overall win, but he hadn't given up his dream. In 2006, he entered another Suzuki, this one supposedly sharing some trace DNA with the Grand Vitara.
Wow.
The car was fast in qualifying, with the fastest time in both the bottom and top sections. Tajima was eager to challenge the record, but once again, dark clouds rolled in and
That
began dropping
onboard
snow
is
and popcorn-sized hail.
Insane.
The full course was deemed too dangerous, so once again, Tajima would have to settle for the shorter course. Tajima returned, this time with an opportunity to go for the record and the 10-minute mark. The car was faster than ever before, and after 13
Look at it sliding
years,
about.
Rod Milne's record finally fell. But the 10-minute mark still hadn't, with Tajima posting a 10:01.
Still haven't. Wow, so close to dropping the 10
He'd
mark.
continue to try year after year, winning the next 4 events in a row as well, but still not quite able to crack the goal. Tajima wanted to give the people of Japan something to smile about. He was on a great run, but just 500 meters from the top, disaster struck. His car had overheated and was spewing water from the radiator.
Oh no.
The power steering had also failed and made the car extremely difficult to turn. Thankfully, Tajima was of course named Monster, and his physique helped him get the car to the end of the race. And, after decades of attempts, he was the first to break the 10-minute barrier.
No
with a
way.
time of 9:51.
Even with those
Finally,
problems.
he'd accomplished his goal, and just in time. Sebastian and the Peugeot obliterated the record, taking off 1 minute and 32 seconds
speed.
for a time of 8:13.
8:13. No.
Your average Joe
What?
wasn't going to be able to compete against these factory-backed, one-off, purpose-built hill climb monsters paired with the best drivers in the world. So instead, people turned to a variety of different classes to have their fun at the mountain. There was now nearly
That
20
is
different
crazy.
classes, with new ones coming and going.
What?
Everything from fuel-guzzling big rigs to electric cars. Following his big win, Tajima had actually switched to the electric class, citing that he did it to raise climate change awareness.
Wow.
He was successful in the class, winning and even beating his record, although still nowhere near Loeb and the Peugeot. Electric cars did have some unique advantages at the mountain though, especially at high altitudes. The higher up the mountain competitors got, the less oxygen there was, and combustion cars would drop in power.
Right.
Electric cars, on the other hand, didn't have this issue, and
Yeah.
some thought that this could be the key to beating the Peugeot's time. The IDR took inspiration from the Volkswagen entry back in 1984, again using dual motors and making around 670 horsepower. Although, of course, this time they were electric, and unlike the Golf, the IDR had some serious aero. The goal was to set an
Wow.
electric
That
record, shooting for Reese Milne's winning
looks
time in the 1600
incredible.
horsepower Drive-EO PP100 in 8:57 in 2016. To drive, Volkswagen got Romain Dumas, who had won 3 of the last 4 years in a Norma prototype. Not only had the car beat the electric time, it had also beaten the Peugeot's time, reaching the summit in just 7 minutes and 57 seconds.
7 minutes.
After 101 years of Pikes Peak, this is still the fastest time to this day, although it's more than likely that the record will be challenged again as technology continues to advance. While this video has mainly focused on the overall winners, there are hundreds of incredible stories that have unfolded as enthusiasts have found themselves drawn to the summit. While racing up mountains might not be your calling, I hope this video still
That shot is
resonates with
crazy.
you, and that you can find and pursue your own passions like the inspiring characters in this video.
That was mind-blowing. Like I said many times in that video, I had no idea that this even existed. So when you guys were commenting and saying, oh, you should react to this video, I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Which seems to be the case with half of the videos that you guys recommend. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I watched the video, I'm like, oh my goodness me. That was crazy. I have no other words for it. It was crazy, insane, racing up a mountain, and they managed to get the time down to just under 8 minutes. That mental. And it's been going on for like over 100 years. Yeah, I did love that recommendation. So with that being said, if you have any other videos that you'd like me to react to, drop them in the comments. I'm working my way through everybody's suggestions at the moment. If you did want to check out any of my other socials, they are all linked down below. And if you want to become a member on this channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. But I hope you enjoyed today's reaction, and I will catch you next time for the next one. Bye!